Are you struggling to connect theory with classroom practice on the Praxis ESOL 5362 exam? That covers foundations of language learning and second language acquisition theories. Hi, I'm Elizabeth, a college professor and a test prep expert with Study.com. Today we're focusing on the Praxis Foundations of Language Learning competency, applying Krashen's input and effective filter ideas, distinguishing BICS from CALP, and scaffolding within each student's zone of proximal development. Well, this video will turn frameworks from Krashen, Cummins, and Vygotsky into your everyday teaching toolkit. Ready to check out some authentic practice questions? Let's dive in. CALP, or Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency, is best described as which of the following? Is it A, the language used in academic settings, B, the language used in informal settings, C, the language used in professional settings, or D, the language used for social interaction? Let's begin by highlighting the context clue here, which would be academic. The word academic points us to school or classroom language. We also want to remember the difference between CALP and BICS because that can be a little confusing. So to remember the difference, I'll give you some mnemonics. BICS is basic interpersonal communication skills, which you can remember by the letter B for breakfast table talk or social chatter. CALP, being cognitive academic language proficiency, should remind you of C, classroom. Keeping those things in mind, let's go ahead and eliminate the incorrect answers first. We can begin by eliminating option D, the language used for social interaction, since we've already determined that that would be BICS. Next, we can eliminate option B, the language used in informal settings. Again, that points to the use of basic interpersonal communication skills, like social chatter. So B would not be a good option. Next, I'm going to eliminate option C, the language used in professional settings. Now, professional settings may use academic language, but CALP specifically refers to student learning contexts. So that would not be the correct choice. That means A is the correct option, the language used in academic settings. CALP refers to the language proficiency required for academic achievement in a second language. It involves abstract, context-reduced communication that is often found in academic settings. First-year ELL instructor Mr. Green begins class by cold calling on students and asking them to read sentences from their homework aloud. He notices a significant increase in anxiety in the classroom and a decrease in student performance during this activity. What has Mr. Green failed to account for in his lesson planning? Would it be A, students' laziness, B, code switching, C, intrinsic motivation, or D, affective factors? I've highlighted the context clues in this question: significant increase in anxiety and a decrease in student performance during this activity. Anxiety and lower performance are going to point us to emotional issues, not cognitive or social linguistic issues. So, keeping this in mind, let's go through the answer options. We'll begin by eliminating option A, students' laziness, since that unfairly ignores the evidence provided in the context of the question. Option B, code switching, refers to alternating between two or more languages or varieties of language in a conversation, so that would not be applicable to this question because we're focusing on the filter of anxiety. Intrinsic motivation seems like it might be a good option because that does affect engagement. If a student wants to do something because they find it inherently enjoyable. However, it does not directly explain the heightened level of anxiety in the classroom here, so we would not choose option C. That means option D, affective factors, is the correct solution. Affective factors include the various external aspects of an ELL's environment that affects academic performance. According to Krashen's affective filter hypothesis, a student's anxiety, confidence, and attitude towards school act like a filter on their language learning. When anxiety is high and confidence is low, that filter blocks new input. But in a calm, supportive classroom, the filter is lowered and learning happens smoothly. Naomi is an ELL who is new to the country. She requires translation help for most tasks and communicates with English speakers through hand signs. Which stage of second language acquisition is Naomi in? Would it be A, early production phase, B, pre-production phase, C, signing or gesturing phase, or D, silent stage? Let's begin by looking at the context clues in this question. The question tells us that Naomi is just using hand signs and needs translation help for most tasks. This means there's no verbal output and she relies solely on nonverbal communication right now. So a refresher here would be reviewing the 5 stages of second language acquisition, in which I've put this chart up here for you to review. After looking through the chart, you can see there are 2 options we can immediately cross off, which would be option C and D. When looking at the second language acquisition stages, there is no signing or gesturing phase, so option C would be incorrect. And option D, they refer to as the silent stage, is also there to throw you off. Pre-production is a stage, and silent period is what is often referred to, but those 2 are just there to throw you off course. We can also eliminate option A, early production phase. If Naomi was in the early production phase, she would be using single words and short phrases, otherwise known as formulaic speech, which according to this scenario, she is not. So that means the best option here would be B, pre-production phase. Naomi is in the pre-production phase of second language acquisition. The stage is characterized by an ELL who communicates mostly with hand signs and who needs translation help. Even though Naomi is not speaking or reading in English, she is still learning by hearing English spoken and read to her. Now, although this question focuses on SLA stages, Naomi's use of translation and gesture also illustrates Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. With these scaffolds from a more knowledgeable other, Naomi can access meaning now and gradually move from pre-production into early language production. Which of the following terms refers to the social language skills that students need to function in social situations? Would it be A, CALP, B, registers, C, BICS, or D, positive transfer? Let's keep in mind that we're looking for the term that refers to social language skills that students need to function in social situations. And with that in mind, we can eliminate B, registers, and D, positive transfer. We can eliminate registers as an option right away because those are styles of language, not proficiency levels. And we can also eliminate D, positive transfer, since that concerns learner 1 influencing learner 2, and that isn't a skill set either. So that leaves us with option A, CALP, or option C, BICS. Remembering what CALP and BICS stands for will be very helpful for you in this exam. CALP is Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency, and you can remember C for cognitive, A for academic. Those remind you of a classroom. So C, CALP, classroom. This is not classroom talk, though. This is not an academic style language. Remember, we're focusing on social situations. So that would lead us to choose BICS. Basic interpersonal communication skills. And I like to remember BICS again by breakfast table talk or social chatter. So the correct option here would be C, BICS. BICS, or Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills, refers to the context-embedded everyday language that students use in social situations. These skills typically develop first in language learners. Awesome work today. Remember to use context clues, eliminate mismatches, and always tie theories back to instructional practice. With these strategies, you're ready to ace ESOL 5362 and empower your English learners. For more practice, check out our Praxis English to Speakers of Other Languages ESOL 5362 playlist. And for even more detailed practice, strategies, and customizable study materials, head over to study.com and check out our Praxis Test Prep course. Those who use study.com boast a 92% pass rate. Our courses include full-length exams, hundreds of authentic practice questions, and short targeted video lessons specifically developed based on the latest test updates. With our resources, you'll know exactly what to expect on test day. Like this video and subscribe to this channel to get all the latest Praxis test updates. And please leave your questions and success stories in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Happy studying.